The holographic display cast an eerie blue glow across Dr. Samantha Hayes' face as she reviewed the latest test results. Something about the genetic markers didn't make sense. She'd been studying alien biology for 15 years, but she'd never seen anything like this. The DNA structure appeared human, but with subtle modifications that suggested deliberate manipulation. Her laboratory aboard the International Science Station Hawking had become a second home over the past decade. The pristine white walls, gleaming equipment, and gentle hum of machinery usually brought her comfort. Today, they felt suffocating. Dr. Hayes, her assistant's voice cracked with tension. "You need to see this." Samantha looked up from her work to find Julia holding a datapad with trembling hands. The younger woman's face had gone pale. Without a word, Julia placed the pad on the desk and stepped back. The message was brief, but its impact shattered Samantha's world. Confirmed human genetic material detected in Zithrani research samples. Source match: Hayes, Lily. Age at collection: 7 years. Samantha's fingers went numb. The datapad clattered to the floor. Lily had disappeared 3 months ago during a school trip to the Luna colony. The authorities claimed it was an accident, a failure in the environmental systems. They said her body had been lost to space. "Run it again," Samantha whispered. "I've run it 12 times, Julia replied softly. "The match is perfect." Samantha's scientific detachment crumbled. Raw emotion flooded through her as images of her daughter flashed through her mind. Lily's bright laugh, her curious questions about the stars, the way she'd kiss her mother's cheek before bed each night. The Zithrani Empire had presented themselves as peaceful traders when they first contacted Earth 5 years ago. Their advanced technology and seemingly benevolent attitude had earned them favored trading status with the Galactic Council. Now Samantha understood why they'd been so interested in human genetics. She accessed the classified database she'd been granted access to as part of her xenobiology research. The genetic samples had come from a raid on an abandoned Zithrani research vessel. The ship's logs were heavily encrypted, but she could make out enough to realize the horror of what she was seeing. They weren't just studying human children. They were trying to weaponize them. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of diplomatic channels and bureaucratic stonewalling. The Galactic Council representatives expressed deep concern, but insisted they needed more evidence before they could accuse a major economic power like the Zithrani of violations. Their carefully worded responses made it clear. Human children were an acceptable sacrifice for galactic stability. Admiral Catherine Chen of the United Earth Fleet found Samantha in her lab 2 days later, still poring over the data, searching for something, anything, that might help her find Lily. "Dr. Hayes," the Admiral's voice was gentle but firm. "We've confirmed your findings. You're not the only one. There are 37 other families. They're experimenting on our children." Samantha's voice was raw. She hadn't slept since finding the evidence. "The Council knows. They've always known." Yes, Admiral Chen's admission hung in the air. "And now we have proof. The Council thought humanity was too young, too weak to challenge them. They're about to learn how wrong they were." Samantha looked up, really seeing the Admiral for the first time. There was steel in the older woman's eyes, and something else, a carefully controlled rage that matched the fire burning in Samantha's own heart. "What are you proposing?" "The fleet has been preparing for something like this. We've been building ships, weapons they don't know about. Earth's governments have unanimously agreed. This means war, but we need your help." Samantha thought of Lily, alone and afraid, subjected to who knew what horrors. She thought of the other children, of their families. The Zithrani had taken everything from them. The Council had betrayed them. The weight of her decision settled over her like a shroud. "What do you need me to do?" Admiral Chen's smile was grim. "We need you to help us understand their biology, their weaknesses. The Zithrani think they can dissect our children. Let's show them how human parents fight back." That night, Samantha recorded a message for Lily, hoping against hope that her daughter might someday see it. "I'm coming for you, baby. And I promise you, they're going to pay for every tear they've made you cry. As she sealed her laboratory and prepared to board the UEF flagship Nemesis, Samantha realized humanity had reached its breaking point. The galaxy had mistaken human patience for weakness, our diplomacy for fear. That mistake would cost them everything. The war that followed would reshape the galaxy, but it began here, with a mother's love, a scientist's determination, and the terrible discovery that would unite humanity in a way their enemies never thought possible. The UEF Nemesis cut through hyperspace like a blade, its experimental engines pushing the boundaries of known physics. In the ship's tactical center, Dr. Samantha Hayes stared at the holographic display of Zithrani space, each suspected research facility marked in angry red. Admiral Chen stood beside her, watching as new intelligence reports filtered in from their deep cover agents. The Zithrani made one critical mistake, she said, her voice carrying across the hushed command center. They assumed our technological advancement matched our public capabilities. Samantha nodded, understanding the implications, while the Zithrani and their Galactic Council allies saw humans as primitive newcomers. Earth's best minds had been quietly reverse engineering every piece of alien technology they could find. The Nemesis itself was proof of that. Faster, more powerful, and completely invisible to standard detection systems. Approaching Target Alpha, the navigation officer announced. Stealth systems holding. The first facility was a research station orbiting a dead world. Intelligence suggested it was a primary processing center where captured children were first taken for assessment. The thought made Samantha's stomach turn. Launch the infiltration team. Admiral Chen ordered. Dr. Hayes, are you ready? Samantha checked her modified environmental suit one last time. The past month of combat training had transformed her from a laboratory scientist into something else. A weapon forged from grief and determination. Ready. The infiltration pod dropped silently from the Nemesis, carrying Samantha and a dozen Special Forces operators toward the station. Captain Marcus Rivera, the team leader, did one final weapons check. Remember, we need their data cores intact. Everything else is expendable. The station's security never saw them coming. Humanity's new phase shift technology let them pass right through the outer hull, emerging inside like ghosts. The first Zithrani guard died without making a sound, precise shots from human weapons engineered specifically for their physiology. Life signs detected 2 levels down. Samantha reported, reading from her scanner. Multiple species, including human children. Vasquez, Rodriguez, take your teams and secure those kids, Rivera ordered. Doc, you're with me. We need those research files. They fought their way to the central laboratory, encountering surprisingly little resistance. The Zithrani, used to operating with impunity under Council protection, had grown complacent. Their overconfidence would be their downfall. The laboratory itself was a nightmare made real. Samantha forced herself to document everything. Every surgical table, every sample container, every piece of evidence that would justify what humanity was about to do. Her hands shook as she downloaded their research data, each file name a new horror. Dr. Hayes, one of the operators, called out. We found something you need to see. In a secured room, they discovered thousands of genetic samples, each labeled with a name and date of collection. Samantha found Lily's tube, dated just weeks ago. Her daughter was still alive, at least when this sample was taken. They're using them as templates, she realized, reading through the data. They're trying to splice human adaptive capabilities into their own genome. Our children's suffering. It's all been to make themselves stronger. A sudden explosion rocked the station. Multiple council ships just dropped out of hyperspace, Rivera reported. They're not supposed to be here for another week. Someone warned them. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm. Get what you can, and get out. We're about to show them exactly what humanity's been hiding. The Nemesis decloaked, revealing its true form for the first time. Energy weapons of unprecedented power lashed out, cutting through Council ship shields like they weren't even there. The station rocked with secondary explosions. 30 seconds to extraction, Rivera called out. Did you get everything we need, Doc? Samantha clutched the data core to her chest. Everything and more. I know where they're keeping the children. All of them. They fought their way back to the extraction point, more focused now on speed than stealth. Samantha found herself firing alongside the soldiers, each shot fueled by thoughts of Lily and the thousands of other children torn from their families. As their pod reconnected with the Nemesis, Samantha watched the station tear itself apart, secondary explosions rippling along its length. The Council ships were in disarray, most disabled or destroyed by weapons they hadn't thought humans capable of creating. This is just the beginning, Admiral Chen said as they regrouped in the tactical center. The data you recovered, it proves everything. The Council can't ignore this anymore. But Samantha wasn't thinking about the Council. She was studying the decoded facility locations, plotting a course that would take them deeper into Zithrani space. Somewhere out there, Lily was waiting. And now they knew where to look. Send this to Earth Command, she said, highlighting the evidence of the Zithrani's crimes. Let everyone see what they've done. And then let's go get our children back. The Nemesis jumped back into hyperspace, leaving behind a graveyard of destroyed ships and a clear message. Humanity would no longer stand idle while its children suffered. The real war was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn why you should never harm a human child. Would you like me to continue with Part 3? The story is building toward the discovery of the main facility and the true scope of the Zithrani's experiments. The massive gas giant's swirling storms cast an eerie purple glow across the Nemesis's bridge. Somewhere beneath those churning clouds lay their target, a hidden Zithrani research complex embedded in one of the planet's floating cities. Thermal scans are useless in this atmosphere, Lieutenant Park reported, frustration evident in her voice. But the genetic trace is strongest here. If they're keeping the children anywhere in this system, it's down there. Samantha studied the atmospheric readings, her mind racing. The Zithrani had chosen this location carefully. The constant storms and electromagnetic interference made detection nearly impossible, but they hadn't counted on a mother's determination or the tracking system she'd developed using their own genetic manipulation technology against them. There, she pointed to a seemingly random pattern in the storm layers. The atmospheric disruption isn't natural. They're using some kind of shield to maintain a stable pocket. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. Good work, Doctor. Lieutenant Park, take us in. Full stealth protocol. The Nemesis descended through the layers of toxic gas, its advanced shielding systems straining against the pressure. When they broke through the final cloud layer, the facility revealed itself, a sprawling complex suspended by massive anti-gravity engines, nearly invisible against the perpetual storm. Life signs, Chen demanded. Thousands, Park whispered. Multiple species, and at least 300 read as human children. Samantha's heart clenched. Lily was down there. She could feel it. But the facility's defenses were unlike anything they'd encountered before. Multiple shield layers, automated defense systems, and an entire squadron of Zithrani warships patrolling the perimeter. We can't risk a direct assault, Captain Rivera said, studying the tactical display. One wrong move and they could execute the prisoners. Then we don't give them the chance, Samantha replied. An idea forming. The Zithrani are so proud of their genetic engineering. Let's use it against them. Over the next hour, she outlined her plan. Using the data stolen from the previous facility, they could create a targeted biological agent, harmless to humans and other species, but capable of incapacitating Zithrani within minutes. It's not lethal, she assured Admiral Chen, but it will trigger their hibernation response. They'll have no choice but to shut down. The Admiral's expression was steely. Do it. But we'll need a delivery system that can penetrate their shields. Already solved, Samantha gestured to the tactical display. See these maintenance ports? They have to cycle atmosphere from the gas giant for their anti-gravity systems. We can introduce the agent through their own filtration network. The operation began 3 hours later. Modified probes, carrying the biological agent, slipped through the facility's atmospheric intakes. Within minutes, alarms began blaring across the complex as Zithrani soldiers and scientists collapsed into hibernation. Security systems are failing, Park reported. Their automated responses are tied to organic controllers. The whole facility is going dark. Launch the rescue teams, Chen ordered. Priority 1 is securing the children. Dr. Hayes, you're with the primary team. Find Lily. The insertion was chaos, but controlled chaos. Human forces, protected by sealed armor, moved through corridors filled with unconscious Zithrani. Each team had specific objectives: secure the children, gather intelligence, and disable any systems that could harm the prisoners. Samantha ran through the levels of the research wing, her scanner sweeping for Lily's genetic signature. Each room revealed new horrors: surgical theaters, testing chambers, cells filled with terrified children of various species. Medical teams followed behind, treating the worst cases and preparing them for evacuation. She found Lily in a high-security ward, along with dozens of other human children who showed signs of extensive genetic manipulation. Her daughter was unconscious but alive, connected to machines monitoring the changes they'd forced upon her. "I'm here, baby," Samantha whispered, carefully disconnecting the monitors. "Mom's here. We're going home." But as they began the evacuation, a new threat emerged. The facility's automated systems, recognizing the breach, initiated a self-destruct sequence. The entire complex began to shake, the anti-gravity engines fluctuating dangerously. "We need to move faster," Rivera shouted over the comm. "This whole place is going to drop into the planet's core." Samantha carried Lily toward the evacuation point, her mind racing. The other teams reported similar situations: hundreds of children, many too weak to move on their own, all needing immediate evacuation. "Admiral," she called out, "the Nemesis medical bay can't handle this many casualties. We need options." Chen's response was immediate. "The rest of the fleet just arrived. We're bringing in everything we have. No one gets left behind." The next hour was a blur of desperate activity. Human ships appeared through the storms, medical frigates and rescue craft positioning themselves alongside the failing facility. Teams of doctors and nurses rushed to stabilize the most critical cases, while engineering crews fought to delay the complex's collapse. As the last children were evacuated, Samantha found herself back on the Nemesis's medical deck, watching over Lily and the others. The facility disappeared into the gas giant's depths, taking its horrible secrets with it. But they had something more valuable: evidence of the largest crime in Council history, and hundreds of witnesses who could testify to the Zithrani's atrocities. "The Council representatives are demanding an explanation," Admiral Chen said, joining her in the medical bay. "Apparently, we've violated several galactic laws." Samantha looked up from Lily's bed, her expression hard. "Show them everything. Show them what their precious laws protected. And then tell them this is just the beginning." "Would you like me to continue with Part 4? The story is building toward the climactic confrontation with both the Zithrani leadership and the Galactic Council. The Galactic Council's emergency session erupted into chaos as the evidence played across the massive holographic displays. Hundreds of alien diplomats watched in horror as recordings from the Zithrani facility revealed the true scope of their crimes. 3,427 children. Samantha's voice rang through the chamber. Not just humans. Arcadian, Velori, Mindari, any species the Zithrani thought they could exploit, all tortured in the name of their genetic advancement. The Zithrani ambassador, Kextol, rose from his seat, his crystalline exoskeleton glittering under the chamber's lights. "These accusations are baseless. The Zithrani Empire conducts only legitimate scientific research." "Legitimate." Admiral Chen stepped forward, her uniform bearing the scars of recent battles. "Let me show you legitimate." She activated another recording. This one from Lily's neural implants, showing her conscious experiences during the experiments. The chamber filled with a child's screams. Several diplomats fled their seats. Others turned away. But Samantha forced herself to watch, each moment fueling the cold rage in her heart. This was what the Council had protected. This was what their laws had enabled. The human evidence is irrelevant. First Speaker Doran announced, his multiple eyes blinking rapidly. The Zithrani Empire's economic contributions to the galaxy are built on the blood of children. Samantha cut him off. She gestured, and more data filled the displays. Financial records, shipping manifests, council bribes. We found everything. Every credit transferred, every official silenced, every family threatened into compliance. The chamber erupted again, but this time with accusations flying between species. The Arcadians demanded justice for their missing children. The Valori delegation called for immediate military action. The Mindari representatives wept openly, their empathic abilities overwhelmed by the emotional weight of the evidence. "You don't understand what you've done," Kextal hissed, his mandibles clicking in agitation. The Zithrani Empire maintains crucial trade routes, develops essential technologies. Built by experimenting on children, Admiral Chen's voice cut through the chaos. But that ends today. The United Earth Fleet has already begun dismantling Zithrani research facilities across the galaxy. We've freed the prisoners, seized their data, and disabled their ships. This is an act of war. First Speaker Doran shouted. The Council will not stand for. The Council will do exactly nothing. A new voice rang out. Ambassador Rena of the Valori stepped forward, her silvery skin rippling with anger. Because as of this moment, the Council's authority is suspended pending investigation of its complicity in these crimes. Samantha watched as alliances shifted in real time. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive now saw them as liberators. The Council's corruption, exposed to the light, was crumbling. But the victory felt hollow. In the medical bay of the Nemesis, Lely and hundreds of other children still fought for survival. The genetic modifications couldn't be fully reversed. They would carry the scars of Zithrani cruelty forever. There must be a reckoning. Samantha addressed the chamber, not just for the Zithrani, but for everyone who knew and did nothing. Every official who took their bribes, every diplomat who ignored the evidence. Admiral Chen stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. Earth offers the following choice. Surrender those responsible and assist in dismantling the Zithrani Empire's illegal operations, or face the same consequences they will. You would risk galactic civil war. First Speaker Doran challenged. We would risk everything to protect our children. Samantha replied. A lesson you should have learned before you chose to protect their torturers. The next hours were a blur of negotiations, accusations, and revelations. Species after species pledged support to the human-led coalition. The Zithrani delegation, seeing their support crumble, attempted to flee, only to find their ships surrounded by a joint fleet of human and allied vessels. But as the political storm raged, Samantha's thoughts remained with the children. The council chamber's chaos meant nothing compared to the quiet battles being fought in medical bays across the fleet. Some would survive. Others, the damage had been too severe. We'll need to establish new protocols, Admiral Chen said quietly as they watched Kextal and other Zithrani officials being led away in chains. New laws to prevent this from happening again. Samantha nodded, thinking of the changes they'd discovered in Lily's genetic structure. The children will need ongoing care. Some of the modifications, they'll pass them to their own children someday. The Zithrani's legacy will live on in ways they never intended. Then we'll make sure it's a legacy of strength, not victimhood, Chen replied. These kids survived hell itself. They'll show the galaxy what humanity's really made of. As the council chamber emptied, Samantha received a message from the Nemesis's medical bay. Lely had woken up. For the first time in months, she was asking for her mother. Would you like me to continue with the final part? The story will conclude with humanity's emergence as a leading force in the galaxy and the personal resolution for Samantha and Lily. 6 months after the fall of the Zithrani Empire, the newly constructed Unity Station orbited Earth like a shining beacon. Inside its main medical center, Dr. Samantha Hayes watched her daughter Lily practice with her new abilities forced upon her by Zithrani experiments, but now transformed into something remarkable. Lily's hands glowed softly as she manipulated the cellular structure of a damaged plant, accelerating its healing process. Around her, other children demonstrated similar gifts. Some could process complex mathematical equations instantly, others could communicate telepathically, and a few had developed unprecedented physical capabilities. They tried to turn them into weapons. Dr. Revan, a Valori geneticist, observed. Instead, they created healers. Samantha nodded, remembering the day they discovered the true purpose of the Zithrani experiments. They hadn't just been trying to enhance their own species, they'd been attempting to create living weapons for a planned galactic conquest. The Council's corruption had run deeper than anyone imagined. "Mom," Lily called out, her face bright with excitement. "Look what we figured out." She and a young Arcadian boy named Thex demonstrated how they could combine their abilities, accelerating cellular regeneration while maintaining genetic stability. A breakthrough that could revolutionize medical treatment across the galaxy. The door chimed, and Admiral Chen entered, now wearing the insignia of the new Galactic Defense Alliance. "The final trials are beginning," she announced. "They're ready for you, Samantha." In the station's central chamber, former council members and Zithrani leaders faced judgment before representatives of every affected species. The evidence was overwhelming. Decades of conspiracy, thousands of children tortured, entire families destroyed in the name of genetic superiority. Samantha took her place at the witness stand, her testimony broadcast across the galaxy. But she wasn't alone. One by one, the surviving children came forward, not as victims, but as witnesses. They spoke of their experiences, their trauma, and most importantly, their triumph. "You tried to break us," Lily addressed the Zithrani leaders directly, her voice steady. "You thought our adaptability made us perfect test subjects, but you didn't understand what really makes humans. And all children, special. We don't just survive. We grow stronger." The sentences were swift and absolute. The Zithrani leaders and their council conspirators would spend their lives in maximum security facilities, their wealth redistributed to help their victims. The Zithrani Empire itself was dissolved, its territories divided among species who had suffered under their rule. But the greater change came in the galaxy's power structure. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive newcomers, now stood at the forefront of a new alliance. The children's abilities, combined with human determination and ingenuity, opened doors to technological and medical advancements previously thought impossible. "We're establishing the Children's Protection Act," Admiral Chen announced during the closing ceremony, "a set of laws with real enforcement power, ensuring nothing like this ever happens again. And the first guardians of these laws will be those who survive the worst violations." Later, in Unity Station's observation deck, Samantha held Lily as they watched Earth rotate below. The planet seemed different now, not just humanity's home, but a symbol of resilience and justice for the entire galaxy. "Do you still have nightmares?" Samantha asked softly, remembering the months of healing they'd endured together. Lily was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes, but then I remember what you taught me. That pain can make us stronger if we learn from it." The Zithrani thought they were creating perfect beings, but they didn't understand. Perfection isn't about power. It's about how we use what we have to help others. Around them, the station hummed with activity. Former enemies worked together in new research labs. Their focus shifted from exploitation to cooperation. The children's ward had become a center of healing and learning, where survivors helped new arrivals understand and control their abilities. "The galaxy's changing," Admiral Chen said, joining them at the window. The old powers thought they could ignore humanity, treat us and others like resources to be exploited. They never understood that strength isn't about dominance, it's about protection. Samantha watched as a group of children, human, Arcadian, Valori, and others, played together in the station's recreation area. Their laughter echoed through the corridors, a sound that would have been impossible just months ago. We lost something in this war, she reflected. Our innocence about the galaxy, maybe. But we gained something too. Not just justice, but understanding. The knowledge that across all species, across all worlds, some things are universal. Like what? Lily asked, though her smile suggested she already knew the answer. Like the fact that you never, ever mess with someone's children, Samantha replied, hugging her daughter close. No matter what species you are, that's a lesson the galaxy won't soon forget. As Unity Station continued its orbit, a new chapter in galactic history was beginning. Humanity had entered the cosmic stage not as conquerors or victims, but as protectors. And at the heart of their strength was a simple truth. The power to change the galaxy didn't come from genetic manipulation or advanced technology, but from the unbreakable bonds between parents and children, and the determination to create a better future for all. The end.